Welcome, movie fans. Thanks for joining us for episode 104 of Reading Between the Reels, the premier podcast of inexplicably detailed suits made without any sewing experience. If you're a new listener, we're so glad you found us. If you've been enjoying the show, please subscribe and review us on iTunes or Spotify. You can also support the show by posting on your socials and joining our Facebook group. I'm Craig Dickinson alongside Justin Eldon. How's it going, Justin?
It's going pretty great. How are you, Craig?
Well, I'm doing good too. I mentioned during our last episode that I had started using Magic Mind as a way to keep my energy up after long days of teaching and making, thousands of decisions every day. And it's been a little bit over a week now that I've been taking it, and yep, I'm feeling even sharper. Because here's the thing, Magic Mind is not just a quick fix, it's a lasting solution to feeling mentally sharp and less stressed, and the effects build on each other every single day. It's the result of over 10 years of research and over 200 scientific studies, and Magic Mind is it's filled with mushroom nootropics, adaptogens, and over 100% of your daily vitamins C and D. And thanks to Magic Mind, you have a limited offer that you can use now that gets you up to 48% off your first subscription or 20% off one-time purchases with code RBTR20 at checkout, and you can claim that at magicmind.com/RBTR20. Try it for a week. If it doesn't work for you, they'll refund your purchase within 100 days, no questions asked. So, that being said, Justin, back to our newer segment. What have we been watching this week? So what have you been watching? Movies and TV shows?
I've been working my way through some movies. I tend to create a list of movies I need to see, and then after I get done binging an episode or a show or something, I make my way through the movies. And I finished watching Gangs of New York. I have never seen that movie, and I feel like it was one of those that I needed to see at some point in my life. And it was okay. I mean, it's been hyped for so long for me that nothing can ever live up to the hype. It just wasn't. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't what I was expecting. Daniel Day-Lewis obviously was amazing, as he always is. It was just tonally, it was kind of weird, but kind of interesting. I also enjoy movies like that make me go, oh, I don't know much about that point in history. I'm gonna go learn some more about that point in history. So yeah, it was a good watch. If you haven't seen it, I think it's worth a watch. Feeling a little dated though. This is a little dated.
Early 2000s. Can't remember the exact year.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it in the theater when it came out, and that's the only time I've ever seen it.
Oh, really?
And I remember not really liking it. I mean, it's Scorsese, right? I think it's Martin Scorsese, so it's long and violent.
Yeah, it was oddly violent, and all I had really ever heard about it is Daniel Day-Lewis was amazing and Cameron Diaz was the worst. And I didn't really feel like Cameron Diaz was that bad, but she wasn't great, but I don't know. I thought she was fine. The accents in that movie, I don't know if they did any research on the accents of, New Yorkers at that time or immigrants, but holy cow, they were all over the place. I could not figure out what was going on. Maybe that's historically accurate. I don't know.
Yeah.
What have you been watching, Craig?
Yeah, I've been working my way through the Pirates of the Caribbean movies with my kids, who I think have only seen the first three once, and they haven't seen the fourth and the fifth one, which aren't great, but it's still Johnny Depp's great regardless, so it's kind of fun just to watch him for that. And so we just finished the second one, and then we watched the third one, which is actually my favorite of the original trilogy for some reason.
The third one is your favorite?
Yeah, I like the action sequences in that quite a bit.
Yeah, I think when Calypso turns into a giant, it loses me at that scene. It's nah, can't.
That movie's bonkers.
Yeah.
Really, they're all kind of bonkers, but for different reasons.
Yeah. I think the first is probably my favorite. I love that movie.
And I'm continuing to work through The Walking Dead. I'm in season 2 now. I think I've just finished episode 7 maybe, and I just found out what happened to Sophia, and I waited. I mean, I know it's 10 years old. I'm way behind the curve on this, and I could have found out, but I waited and was wow, that's awful.
And she lived happily ever after, right, Craig?
I'm trying to stay spoiler free, but yeah, that was rough.
I mean, the show's pretty old. I don't know if we need to worry about that.
It is. And Deadpool and Wolverine is now available digitally. And so I watched that with my kids this last weekend and laughed at all the same places. It's not as good the second time. I mean, it can't be because a lot of it is the surprises and the cameos and whatnot. But there's still several moments that I was laughing quite a bit. Yeah, it's still very, very entertaining.
It's a good movie to quote as well.
Yeah. Gubernatorial. Anyway, today on the show, we are not talking about Deadpool so much. We're talking about Spider-Man from 2002 as we continue our series on Marvel before the MCU. To this point, we've done Blade, X-Men, Blade 2, and now Spider-Man. We're doing them in chronological order. So, Justin, what are your overall thoughts on Spider-Man?
Okay.
Here it comes, people.
Okay. There's this concept, and it's kind of made its way into like the general vocabulary of the world, especially like politically. But there's this concept that comes from George Orwell's book 1984, where people in that world are expected to do something called doublethink, where they can hold two contradictory truths in their mind at the same time. It's like a way to have some cognitive dissonance, and I feel that way very much about this movie. I love this movie. It is I feel like it's one of the movies that have like made me into who I am today. This movie came out right as I was like embracing the fact that I'm a nerd as a kid. Like I always had this like secret desire to be one of those cool people. And then around 2002, I'm just like, nah, I'm just going to lean hardcore into this nerd stuff. And this movie like became part of me. So I love the movie, but watching it with a critical eye and trying to find deeper meaning like we do on this podcast, I'm like, there are large parts of this movie that are just not good, from the acting to the script to the CGI, which, you know, you got to grade it on a curve because it's old. But
yeah,
even for 2002, I don't think it was great. Or maybe it was overused because everything in the early 2000s, they overused CGI for everything. Even the score, I don't know how I feel about the score. Anyway, but I love the movie so much.
There's that dissonance right there. Yeah,
it's an amazing movie, and I will not hear anyone trash talk it, except for me. Okay.
So I have a follow-up question, and this is always a thing that interests me with these movies. You obviously saw this movie when it came out. I mean, I'm not obviously, but I'm going to assume that you did.
14 years old, 8th grade.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so it's 2002, so I was 26.
Ah, you're so old.
26, 27 when this movie came out. 26, yeah, because it came out in the summer. So I watched it as an adult. I've never seen it as a kid, obviously. So I like it more now than I did then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for me, I grew up with, like, I didn't watch it originally, but like the 67 Spider-Man cartoon, like I watched that a lot. It was in reruns a lot. And the Fox afternoon show, the Spider-Man animated series, with the actual title, love that. Like, to me, that's my definitive Spider-Man. So anything that kind of deviates from that is a little bit like, okay, well, this is a slightly different version and I can go with it, but that's, you know, I will always love that one as the most definitive version of Spider-Man. So, I enjoyed, like I said, I enjoyed it this time through. I think for the most part, it holds up. I do appreciate the fact that, like, tonally, it's not super dark, but it's also pretty earnest. And it takes itself seriously, but not to the point where, like, I mean, it knows it's a comic book movie, but it's not poking fun at the world or at you, and like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Not a lot of that stuff. I did, just some other thoughts, not really my opinion, but more just facts, is that this was the first film to reach 100 million in a single weekend. When it was a massive success, most successful comic book film of all time.
Which is funny, because if you go back and look at reviews from that time, they are not very good reviews. At least the ones that I saw. And if we did that today, if a movie got reviewed in the same way, like, it'd be dead in the water. I mean, look at Joker 2.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at it from the lens of, again, these movies aren't connected in a single cinematic universe, but they're still connected in that they're comic book movies and they're based on Marvel properties. And so this is the fourth one that was, to the normies, like this is just the fourth Marvel movie that they're familiar with. So kind of looking at it along the lines of like the way things explode in the MCU too, right? Like it's the fifth movie with Avengers, but it kind of feels like all of these things have been building. Like Blade breaks open the door and you're like, okay, it can be successful. It doubled its money. It wasn't huge. X-Men comes along and that's a moderate success, but on a bigger scale. And then this blows the doors off. But I think it's important that you look at it in the context of that too, that you had these other things, especially X-Men, as much more of a family-friendly movie, kind of setting the stage for this. And then you get a character as well-known as Spider-Man. And it is a very family-friendly movie. So I think all of that opens up. You have the name recognition. You have all the built-in stuff from the cartoons and whatnot. And then this movie comes out and
this is actually
very successful.
First movie that I've watched with my kids. Like I did for this podcast, I watched it with my kids, and this is the first PG-13 movie I've watched with my kids. I have younger kids, but this is the first one where I'm like, it's PG-13, but there's really not anything in here that I wouldn't be okay with my 8-year-old watching or my 6-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, there's some jump scares and I guess the skeleton thing, but that's very comic booky and cartoony. Yeah. The violence is very sanitized, I guess. It would be the way I describe that. So, anything else that you want to talk about before we jump into the aspects?
No. Let's save it.
Okay. So we're looking at cinematography, composition, color, camera work. I think there's some really interesting things to talk about, and I'm curious what you noticed on this viewing.
So the biggest ones I noticed is one, that very first scene where you get the macro shot of his thumb zooms in and you see the little barbs coming out, and I guess that's how he sticks to walls or whatever. Which I can't tell you how many times as a teenager I ran full speed at a wall and then jumped on it, trying to stick to it. I'm like, this is the chance. This is when I'm going to do it. I am now Spider-Man. I was not. It never worked, but I tried it off. Anyway, so that particular scene, you have a lot of macro shots like that. That one, as well as when the spider is actually crawling on his hand and then he flicks it off, which I didn't know. As it's crawling away, the one he flicks off is actually a real spider. They painted the butt of the spider. That's
crazy, right?
I'm sure there's a better word than butt. I don't know what that is. A history teacher, not a science teacher.
That's right.
But the one that I thought was really interesting was when he actually first starts wall crawling. That was, first off, as a kid, it's super cool to watch. I'm assuming they just, it's a horizontal wall, right? And then they use perspective to make it look
perspective. Yeah, exactly.
But it looks so good. There's nothing in that scene to tell you that that's what's happening. And the way the camera just circles around him, because first you see what he sees and he's looking up and he's very optimistic about it. And then as it swivels around and you see him looking down, he almost looks you almost expect him to be terrified. I feel like a lot of people in that situation will look back and be like, what the heck? But he takes the nerdy kid approach and he's like a kid in a candy shop after that. He's like, woo, jump around the city, stuff like that. I thought that was a particularly fun shot. I also noticed there was the scene in, and I don't know if this was intentional, there was the scene in the burning building where Spider-Man goes in to save, the last person, and he meets the Goblin in there, and the Goblin throws his little ninja star thingies at him, which have a name, but I forgot. Anyway, throws the ninja stars, and Spider-Man does a very Matrix, fall back, and it goes over his chest, like a very classic Matrix move. Do you think that was an homage? Was that intentional, or?
It's hard to say how it couldn't be. I mean, the Matrix would have 3 years earlier, would have come out 3 years earlier, so
yeah,
how could it not be?
Yeah.
Well, I love that you brought up the climbing the wall, and if also we talked a little bit about this, the CGI, and we will continue to talk about that. How it's a little dated and it's a little rough. It's a little kind of gummy looking in certain places, and where that's I think a really interesting way to solve that problem in an old school way, and it looks so much better. It works so much better because you do that. I mean, this is Sam Raimi, which, I'd seen the Evil Dead movies before seeing this. I'm assuming you probably hadn't as a 14-year-old.
I had, actually.
Oh, fantastic.
I was a devious little child. My parents didn't know.
So there's a lot, and Darkman, that's another one that had come out before this. And so there's a lot of kind of vintage Sam Raimi camera work in this film with Dutch angles and following things around with that. Like I was thinking specifically of like when he does spider sense kind of for the first time when he's in the hallway there and things freeze and the camera follows it around and it's showing us all the things that he's sensing or hearing in some way. I like that quite a bit. That
was such a cool way to do spider sense too, because I know like a lot of this movie you can see, okay, they obviously got this from the cartoon or they got this from the comic, but as far as I know, that seemed like a pretty original idea to just kind of like stop everything and show it. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's for the most part a very well shot movie, a beautiful movie. One of the things that I really like is I'm going to jump around quite a bit chronologically, and it's in all of the trailers and it's in the music video and whatever, but where you see the choice in Peter's eyes, like when the goblin drops Gwen and he drops the tram full of kids, and you see each of those images, just one of those images in the mask reflected in the eye sockets. And so I thought that was just a great, real kind of creative way to show these are the things he's looking at, these things he has to choose, and it's beautifully done.
Also in The Matrix with the blue and the red pill.
Yeah.
And Morpheus's glasses.
Somebody saw The Matrix.
Yeah, like literally everybody.
Well, let me check here. No, that's fine. No, I'm looking at it's not this movie. This is so Don Burgess did the cinematography for this movie. I think it's the second. We'll get to the second movie. I think the second one is I want to say Bill Pope who did the cinematography on the Matrix films. So there is some Matrix DNA that shows up a little bit later in there. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but yeah, there's definitely some. I mean, the Matrix was massively influential, so that's tip your cap on that stuff. Some other things that I wanted to mention is we talked about this with X-Men and the black uniforms. The world's not ready yet, and this one leans heavily into very cartoony comic book palette. Right, the suit is super bright red and blue. For some reason, the Goblin costume, which we'll get to, is just green, and they didn't do the purple as much. I mean, it's kind of muted in there, but I was thinking specifically of like the World Unity Festival is every color in the rainbow. It's so bright, so vibrant. It's in the middle of the day. Comic book movies are usually not during the day at this point. They're all, other than some of the early like Richard Donner Superman stuff, it's all dark, and here it's in the day, so you can really see everything really well and very vibrantly.
Yeah, very like you said, very different from X-Men, very different from Blade. Like I feel like X-Men kind of paved the way, and they're like, okay, we can get a little bit more daring with this. It would have been interesting to see in an alternate universe somewhere, what would a Matrix Blade leathery Spider-Man suit look like? Like how would they have modernized that?
Yeah, I can see that.
Maybe Spider-Man's more iconic than the X-Men. I'm not sure. Maybe you can't.
Well, I mean, I think that's some of the logic behind the symbiote suit before it was decided that it was a symbiote suit, right? That we're going to make him darker and more brooding or whatever, at least in appearance.
I don't want to talk about that movie.
We'll get there. A couple other things I wanted to talk about with this, just the final battle. I really like the final battle. Shaky cam is something you have to use sparingly, and I think they use it really, really well there. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of cool short sequences in that to kind of, like Spider-Man gets the crap beat out of him.
He really does.
And you feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very tangible how you feel. Like it's those kind of close-up shots, and then the quick editing, and then the shaky cam where it's very immersive in that way. And then of course you have that, and I've heard the producers talk about like how proud they are of, as they should be, like the absolutely gorgeous dynamic shot at the end as he's swinging through the city where the camera is following him like in all his glory. Apparently
it drops like 600 feet or something, like 50 stories. I read that the camera drops to do that. Is that accurate? Maybe I misread that.
It sounds right.
You're giving me a look. Anyway, I didn't know if that was CGI or real, but apparently it's real. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty great. But yeah, the camera is super dynamic in this one and following Spider-Man all over, and so I like that. I like anything that makes it immersive is something I'm a fan of. So my kudos on that. Anything else we want to talk about before we move on down to sound?
Since we were talking about that final battle, I love that scene right before. I don't know who decided to put it in, but right before the Goblin Glider stabs Norman Osborn, and you just get the cut of his face, and he goes, "Oh," and then it goes right through him. A lot. The way that is cut, it goes to his face, to the glider, and then to the stab. It's like, ooh, that is so like quick and precise, and you kind of realize like, oh, this guy effed up, and he knows he effed up.
Nice. Oh, I did think of one other thing I wanted to mention, because I did mention Evil Dead, was that the thing that most reminds me of the Evil Dead, and yes, Bruce Campbell's in the scene too, but the fight with Bonesaw, where you have from essentially Bonesaw's perspective, with the foot is coming at the camera.
Oh yeah,
is right out of those movies.
Bonesaw is ready.
Yes, he is. As for sound, my biggest thing that I want to point out for effects is the Spidey sense again. Just that ringing sound, which I think is really fascinating, where it's kind of like hyper focuses our attention and his.
I also wanted to know if you noticed this. So his webbing, there are a lot of different sounds for the webbing. I'm not sure how they made that. Maybe you know. But at the end, again, during the final fight, when he is going up against Goblin, he kind of tries to like slow him down, and he makes like a little web for Goblin to get caught in. And as he gets caught, he kind of like peels it off the walls, and it's very like metallic, like scratching sound. Why? What are they doing there? That's the only time that the webbing makes a metallic noise. Yeah,
I've never thought about it. Like I've noticed that, but I've never thought about it. And so now my initial thought is, can he change the consistency of his webbing? Does he have that much of? I mean, in the comics he would have that because
he makes his own webbing.
Makes his own webbing, but can he make his organic webbing in different consistencies? Because it does. It crackles almost like it's like a breaking metal tin something.
Yeah. I went back, and my kids got mad at me because I went back a couple times and listened to that. I'm like, yeah, that's definitely metallic sounding. Why would they do that just in that one scene? And it might just be a lack of CGI and like the issues they have with that. But even as he's pulling it down, it looks almost like it was like paper clips or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
like
it's a different consistency. It's not like the sticky kind of very flexible webbing.
Yeah, thought that was a weird choice for the Sound and Volley folks.
Yeah. So you mentioned the theme music, which I have thoughts.
Yes. Okay, so Danny Elfman does the score. And Danny Elfman's great. I feel like he's almost like the Hans Zimmer of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Like he does just about everything. But this sounded so much like Batman 1989. Especially the scene or the music during the opening credits, as it shares so much in common with Batman 1989, and Batman 1989 is very different tonally. It's obviously a very dark movie, and it's very mysterious, and like Gotham is a very different city than New York. New York here is portrayed as like almost like a hopeful place, and you got a lot of sunshine and colors, right? But then you pair that with the Elfman score, almost Batman-esque. It was very strange. It took me out of it just a little bit. I don't really have any issues with the rest of the score. I thought the Mary Jane theme was great, like the general Spider-Man like theme as he's suiting up, or particularly the scene where he is in his room and he's like trying his web shooter for the first time, shooting the doctor. Like that's a very like excited tone, which goes along with what he is feeling at that time. Like, heck yeah, if I was a nerd and I just got superpowers, that'd be the best day of my life. Like he's pumped. But yeah, just that opening score is weird. Did you find that weird? Is this just me?
Yeah. Well, Again, seeing this as an adult and knowing Danny Elfman, like I'd paid attention. I knew Danny Elfman had done the score. And so I was anticipating something on par with Batman 89. And this is not nearly as good of a theme. I do hear what you're saying about it being kind of reminiscent of that. It's a little bit more drum heavy to me.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, just like pause and then go listen to Google Batman 1989 theme and then Google Spider-Man Sam Raimi 2002 scene. Like, I don't know, or score. They sound, and to me, it sounds a lot.
Yeah, I think that the Batman, the 89 theme it's a little bit more versatile. I think that's probably what I'm looking at, because it is the Batman march. It does have that, but it also starts with strings, where this basically just jumps in percussion right away, which I guess is supposed to make me kind of think of, like, I'm thinking like Spider-Legs, kind of, it's very kind of frantic or whatever. And there is, again, like Batman 89, there's a super long credit sequence. It's like 3 minutes.
Oh yeah, my kids were freaking out. Like, Dad, why are these credits so long? Let me tell you a tale, child. Back in the day,
this is
sequences were long.
That's how we did it.
But the further back in time you go, the longer those scenes are too.
Really, and there's no end credits at all. Like, when the movie's over, it's over.
Oh yeah, they were like, Dad, is there an end credit scene? I'm like, it's not that time, child.
Soon, kid. But I do like that. I think it's fairly versatile. You do hear it multiple times. Sometimes it's kind of melancholy. And sometimes, like, when he's sketching out the costume ideas, there's like a lot of guitar in there. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with it. I do appreciate that, but I can't not compare it to Batman 89. So, which I still think is a freaking amazing, maybe his best work. But
I love that so much.
I still get pumped by that.
You can't hear that theme and not think of Batman. Like, that is the definitive Batman theme song.
Yeah. Yeah, and like John Williams' Superman theme.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, and this, like, again, as an adult, not a hopeful child, like Justin was first time in the theater, seeing Macy Gray in this movie immediately dated it for me. Like, even the first time I watched it, I was like, why did you do that? You just said, this movie's from 2002. We're owning that.
Yeah.
Because people now are like, who's Macy Gray? I'm like,
Macy Gray was so cool at the time, though, Craig. So cool. All the kids were listening to Macy
big
Gray.
Song. No, I hate that. I don't like her voice. I don't like the song. I don't like it. What I do like, and I know that, I'm sorry, but I just keep saying this, I unironically like Nickelback. And thank you, Ryan Reynolds, for bringing that back. But yes, that song "Hero" over the end credits, and it's not Nickelback. It's Chad Kroeger. It's the lead vocalist of Nickelback, and Josie Scott, who was the lead vocalist of Saliva at the time. It's Nickelback.
That song has been parodied so many times, though. Like, I can't even. Of course, I can't even take it seriously anymore.
There's a lot from this movie that's been parodied, like the Upside Down Kiss and stuff, which, but
can we talk about that real quick?
That's a tribute. Yeah, we can talk about it now.
Let's talk about this upside down kiss. As a kid, you're like, oh my goodness, that's so cool. I want to do that someday. But logistically, the amount of water running into that man's nose. Does he have...
It was an issue.
Oh my goodness, that looks so uncomfortable. And like, his neck is all veiny. That guy, he's going to black out any minute. He's like, listen, Mary Jane, I know this is cool and all, but I'm going to die. Like, I'm pretty sure spider powers don't protect you from, like, blood rushing to your head.
Yeah.
Oh, and again, parodied a million times. Like,
yeah. But back to the Nickelback thing again.
Oh,
we're gonna hear. No, I'm just gonna say, because I wanted to hint that we're gonna hear some more Nickelback soon. Next time, our next episode. Yeah. Don't look at that face. Come on. It's music, but it sucks.
Everyone knows
stop it.
Nickelback is trash. Everyone knows it.
Sorry, Canada. The diegetic use of the...
My wife's Canadian. I can say that. It's fine.
There you go. The diegetic use of the Spider-Man 67 theme was fun. The guy busking, and that's fun. And then speaking of end credits, like, I didn't watch this movie all the way through today, or not today, but the last time I watched the film for the podcast, I was like, I'm just going to let it run while I'm finishing up my notes, and I always like to see if there's anything that happens at the end. But they do play, like, the actual original version of the 67 theme, of the 67 cartoon at the end, like, in its entirety. Yeah, it's not a remake, it's not a cover, it's the actual one. And so that's just fun to hear.
I had, growing up, when CDs were still a thing, I bought the CD to this movie, and I would, like, jam out in my little basement room. I thought it was so cool. And that song was on there, the original Spider-Man theme, and I never knew it was at the end of the film. I just thought they put it on the soundtrack for kicks and giggles.
Just for fun. A couple of things I want to talk about just with vocal sounds before we move on. I always forget that this movie has an opening and closing narration, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if I agree with the fact that this movie is all about a girl, as he says it is at the beginning.
No.
I don't think it is.
No.
Like, it might be for you, Peter, but not for us.
Um,
Go ahead.
You can do better, Peter. You can do better.
Yeah,
Listen.
we're going to get to performances in just a second.
Man.
I do want to say that I really do like the echoey goblin voice. That's the last thing I'll talk about this, where in the mansion where he's looking around, Norman's looking around.
The Two-Face thing?
Yeah.
Well, not Two-Face.
Well, the two.
No. Jekyll Hyde thing. There we go. That's
Yeah, the Jekyll Hyde thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like that quite a bit. So, and the Uncle Ben voiceover, we hear him again talking about great power and great responsibility as he's getting inspired to suit up and actually do something.
Actually do something.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about performance and how bad Kirsten Dunst is.
Let's talk about performances. I don't like Kirsten Dunst. I don't. The only movie I liked her in was my recent watch of the movie Civil War, where she plays a very rude and mean person, but I feel like that plays to her strengths because in all of the movies she seems like a very rude and mean person. And also, like, Mary Jane's a terrible person in this movie.
Yeah. Well, she's not good in any of them, dude.
She's just like mean, and she gets mad at Peter for no reason, and she is in love with and
horrible Flash Thompson.
Yeah, she's with Flash Thompson, who's obviously just the worst. And that scene where she was like outside of her house talking about how her dad's yelling at her and she wants to go to New York, and then someone drives up and is like, "Hey, check out my new car." I don't know if that was Flash. Was that Flash? Okay.
Yeah.
She like switches personalities.
Yep.
She's like, "Yeah, bye, Peter, nerd. I'm gonna go with this guy with a car." Oh my goodness! And then she's dating Harry at the time when she makes out with Spider-Man. Come on.
Also true.
Also,
okay.
I mean,
I will say this for her:
if you have a chance to make out with Spider-Man, I guess you should. But
yeah, that's that. I think that you can be on your list. You get a hall pass for that. She is a good screamer, though. I will give her she's good.
Okay.
She's good at screaming. I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. But let me ask you this: so I'm assuming that you've seen Jumanji, the original Jumanji.
Okay, but she's like 10 in that movie.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So, and also Interview with the Vampire. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that. That's on my list.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to do that at some point. We do like.
Also, isn't that movie kind of weird? Because like,
super weird.
Doesn't Tom Cruise like kiss her and she's like 7 or something?
There's weird stuff. We'll get. I don't want to get into the weeds too much with that, but so it sounds like what I'm hearing. I was trying to make a thesis here that like she was good as a child and just that's it. In your opinion, you liked her earlier work.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's fine.
She was a child.
Right.
I don't think she's necessarily like bad actress. I just hate the character of Mary Jane. She just seems. This is a family friendly podcast, so I can't say certain words. But she seems like that.
Gotcha.
Not that word. The less word. The lesser word. Craig, you can edit this out. Whatever.
No, it's staying in. Okay, here's my hot take. I'm not a fan of Tobey Maguire.
Oh,
I think that he's fine as Peter, but he is not remotely cool enough to be Spider-Man.
I don't even really like him as Peter that much.
He's not. Yeah, he's okay. I also like from both watching the movie and reading the book, Molly's Game. Like he's not a good dude, and so that does color some of my perception of that. But even at the time, I was like, Spider-Man should be way cooler, and there should be. It's not like in the same way that Batman is two distinct personalities, but there should be a level of coolness upgrade that happens that I don't think quite happens in this movie. He's fine as Peter for me, but his Spider-Man is lacking.
I mean, even as Peter, he seems very stoic all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Even when he's around, like I understand he's an introverted guy, so there's going to be a level of stoicism there. But even when he's around his friends and around his aunt and uncle, who he should be looser with, he's still just straight-faced.
Yeah.
Like there's not a whole lot of emotion to go off of there.
Yeah. Well, when we get down to characters, I have notes on how old all the people are, and I think that'll make for a conversation. But I do want to say
before we cast high school aged kids in high school roles.
I do want to say that Willem Dafoe is freaking amazing in this film.
Oh yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah.
Perfect casting for that. And I also think that James Franco as his son is great father-son casting.
Yeah, I actually, growing up, I did not like Harry Osborn. I didn't like James Franco in this role. But now that I watch it, he's a very subtle comic relief. I kind of like him. He did a great job.
It's understated, but it's really, really good because he's kind of a nerd and an outcast as well, but in a different way than Peter is.
That kind of just throws money at problems because he doesn't really know how else to solve things.
Yeah, let me buy you something because it'll make you feel better.
Because it'll make you feel better.
Yeah, but I did want to say as much, and I guess that's probably my problem with Tobey Maguire is that as much as he's not two different characters that I feel like he should be, Willem Dafoe absolutely is. Like Norman and the Goblin are two completely different characters. Like especially him from the beginning. I'm something of a scientist myself. That guy to dropping the kids and Mary Jane, and that character is not the same.
Yeah. So. I'm really glad because I feel like the criticism for the last 20 years has been this movie did Willem Dafoe wrong by putting a mask on his face as Green Goblin. Yep. And I love that in the MCU they let him go maskless because it is chef's kiss. It's so good.
Yeah. I understand why you have to preserve the dual identity thing, which I thought was really interesting. Like this time, I hadn't remembered that Peter does not know that Norman is the Goblin until the very end, like until that final fight.
Yeah, because Norman finds out during Thanksgiving, and then
and so that's I naturally just go, well, they know who each other are, and they're playing it off, but no, it really is like then the last 10 minutes of that film. So you kind of have to you have to put a mask on him one way or the other, or I don't know.
Yeah, I just think the movie, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but would have been better served if they had dealt with the secret identity in another way, maybe even revealed it sooner. Yeah. Or, like in the MCU, I like that he has his mask. His mask is then smashed symbolically, and then we get to see Willem Dafoe's freaky looking face. I love it. Yeah,
because then they did have an animatronic mask, and you can find YouTube clips of that. That's not hard to find. That was very close to comic accurate, and I liked that a lot. Now, as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking they could have done a lot of this with prosthetics too. Like you could have gave him a false nose and ears, and say he mutated like a werewolf or something when the thing activated. Like I don't know why you don't do that since you already went the whole way of he's got organic web shooters. So
yeah, I mean maybe because the suit was, they were going with military grade stuff, that's how it was invented. Maybe they thought, if it's military grade, it should have a helmet. But then why would you make your helmet with pointy ears and demonic eyes if it's going into the military? Here, military, I know you like goblins. I don't know. I don't know.
Let's pause just a sec on the costumes because we do have thoughts. But that's yes, we do. Okay. No, I love it. I do want to talk about that. But let's talk about dialogue. Do you have any 2 or 3 lines that you really like from this film? Okay, so. Because I do. I have a few. Obviously, I brought up the I'm something of a scientist myself thing. That become just a meme, and it's fun.
Yeah, this movie has been memed into oblivion.
Yeah, it really has. But this isn't a funny one, but I like it. It's the line where Uncle Ben says the thing. But what I really liked about it this time was that there's actually context there, because it is kind of clunky and kind of sappy if you just drop it in without it being a natural thing. But I really like how they did it. And this is what he says. He says, this guy, Flash Thompson, he probably deserved what happened, but just because you can beat him up doesn't give you the right to. Then it's, remember, with great power comes great responsibility. And so I love that context where it feels like he's not reading a cue card. He's like, this is coming organically from him, that it comes out of that conversation about Flash.
Well, and I kind of think what people kind of forget about that quote too is he's not really talking about, he's talking about restraint more than anything.
Yes.
You have this great power. You have to, wield it responsibly. He's not saying you have to go protect people. He's saying hold yourself back, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's probably what I connected to subconsciously, but didn't verbalize as well as you just did. So, appreciate that.
I liked just J. Jonah Jameson. Yeah, any of his oh my goodness, he's so good that like you can't even recast the character.
No.
20 years later, he's still playing J. Jonah Jameson.
Yep.
His delivery on the lines, he's great. So Spider-Man wasn't trying to attack the city, Peter Parker says. He was trying to save it. That's slander. It is not. I resent that. Slander is spoken. In print, it's libel.
I was saying that one too.
I love that.
Oh man, yeah. Speaking of the double think, right? I'm like, I can get around that.
Or your problem is you don't. I'm going to butcher this. You don't trust anyone. I trust my barber.
Whatever, cheaper. That whole thing is just so good. Oh man, yeah. I was going to use the.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that if we can get a picture of Julia Roberts in a thong, we can certainly get a picture of this weirdo. Oh man,
the chaos of J. Jonah Jameson's desk as he's trying to talk to one person and he gets interrupted constantly. Do you ever feel like that as a teacher?
Yeah.
You're like trying to help one student and there's like 12 other students like telling you about their day, which is great, but it's like, I'm doing something.
Yeah, they can't wait. They're about to.
And then this is not my idea. I saw this on social media and I thought it was really good. But even though J. Jonah Jameson seems like a jerk in that scene where Green Goblin breaks through the window and like grabs him by the neck and like who brings in the photos of Spider-Man? I mean, he saves Parker's life. He says, I don't know. Like they come by mail, full on lying to save Parker's life. I thought that was interesting, and I don't think the movie like did anything with that. They kind of just said it and then they moved on, and you never get this sense where they're following up with, he's not a total creep, he's just a businessman,
Yeah, no, that's another thing that, like you said, you keep saying, but memed into oblivion. But like, isn't that the one that's got like the quote from The Dark Knight too? Like at their in their final moments or whatever, people show you who they really are.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had just so much of what he had. The last thing I just have is the last scene, which I think is kind of ironic, where Norman gets impaled, and then just his last words to Peter are, "Don't tell Harry."
Yeah.
Which could have saved him a whole lot of trouble if he would have just said, "Here's the deal." And it's interesting that he makes that choice, and he doesn't really. I don't feel like that was explored that much either.
What wasn't specifically?
His choice to not. I mean, I guess. Is he doing that to not hurt Harry? Is that the idea behind that? That he's like trying to preserve the fact that your dad was this horrible mass murderer?
Perhaps because Harry looks up to his dad. Even again, the double think. I think he knows his dad is not a good dad, but he still defends his dad and respects and listens to his dad.
Yeah.
But to a degree that Peter would know that, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just not a good person, but if I was in Peter's shoes and Harry hated me, hated me and, Spider-Man because I take pictures of him, I would be like, actually, your dad was crazy.
Yeah. Well, some of the context of that too. I go back a little bit, and maybe that's, I'm reading the text, is that he says, "I've been like a father to you, be a son to me now." And then Peter has a great thing where he says, "I have a father. His name was Ben Parker," which is a great callback to the scene in the car where like, "Don't try and pretend to be my dad." That whole thing. And so that also,
I don't mean to preach. I don't mean to lecture. And I know I'm not your father. Then don't pretend to be.
Oh, that's so good. That breaks my heart when I hear him. Oh, he's just trying to help. But that does lend credence to the thing where he's trying to preserve that. Maybe that's fresh in his mind for Harry.
Yeah.
So,
maybe.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like that there are some deep themes in this movie, and then to just kind of simplify it with the monologue or the narration.
Yeah.
At the end, just like, oh, it's a story about a girl. Like, nah, there's so much more going on here.
Yeah, it's a story about responsibility, man.
Yeah, it really is. That's another thing that's been memed into oblivion is great power comes great responsibility. I bet most people don't even know where that came from. Like most kids these days.
Yeah, well, and we've been misquoting it, right? Because in No Way Home, Aunt May uses the line, and which I thought was a misquote until I actually did the research. We said, with great power must come great responsibility.
Oh, see, I even misquoted right there.
There's a whole other level to that, right? Like, you have to make the choice.
Yeah. I love in the MCU the amount of times, well, we see this in Garfield's version of Spider-Man 2, the amount of times where they say the line without saying the line, like they have to like dance around saying the exact phrase.
Yeah.
We could do a whole episode just about different ways they've said that. And it never sounds as good, but it's always there.
All right, I'm going to move down to a little bit to facial expressions and body language and stuff. And my biggest thing for this, and I still kind of get chills watching it, is when Peter stalks Ben's killer and goes into the warehouse and he drops down in that classic comic book pose.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the only time you see it, but it's such a cool pose, and it's exactly how it's supposed to look.
Yeah, so when he's almost like upside down squatting and like holding on to the web and like, you know what bugs me about that scene though is, so he rappels from the ceiling on his web.
Yeah.
And then without climbing up the web, he just goes
retract it?
zoop. He retracts it, but I'm like, he does not have the ability to retract web. That's
the
not
physics don't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about this. This another thing I want to talk about. We talked about this, I think, probably at lunch. But the whole shot where Peter catches Mary Jane's food on the tray.
Yeah.
It's filmed in camera. It's my research says 156 takes, 16 hours.
Oh, I think I had said 137. 156 though.
Yeah, I mean, anything over 100 is ridiculous, and so just you don't need to do it for real. Like that must cost so much money to have all those extras on set and reset every time. Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, it works. It's a great looking shot.
It is, but I feel like you could have filmed it in reverse with everything on the plate and then just like thrown the plate up. I don't know. I'm not a movie guy, but I feel like there would have been easier ways to do that.
I wonder if that's we're pot committed, man. We're getting this thing. Half like 75 takes. We're like, we're doing this. I'm not giving up until we get it.
If I was 16 hours on set, I'd be so mad.
We did talk about the kiss. Yep, I said, yeah, it's iconic, but both in universe and out, because there's a callback to that in.
I really
hate
that.
Which is kind of funny because they were the only two people there. How did anybody else know about that?
Know about what? The kiss?
Well, yeah, because they recreate that with Gwen Stacy in the third movie.
Oh, yeah.
Did the cameraman tell somebody about it?
No. Okay, so they recreate it with Gwen Stacy, but Gwen Stacy doesn't know that it's like an iconic kiss. It's only Mary Jane that knows it.
Yeah. But it's kind of it's a nod to us, and it's like, why would they do it that way? Is it just because it's Spider-Man and he's cool looking upside down?
I guess. See, I just don't know how. That doesn't seem enjoyable. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, all right. I want to talk about the costume a little bit.
Which one?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with.
Where should we start?
Let's start with the goblins, because I think we kind of started that conversation. The helmet thing, because they have a scene earlier where there's a guy testing, like an Oscorp employee testing the glider, and he's got goggles. Mm-hmm. Are those the same goggles that are later repurposed for the goblin mask?
Okay, so maybe the goblin mask was like, okay, headcanon here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Norman made his own mask out of the goggles. How would he? Okay, no, that doesn't work.
I mean, he's something of a scientist himself, Justin. So
I've heard that. Yes.
Maybe he put it in like a machine that makes stuff. Like they do that in the MCU all the time. Like, we have this machine and it just makes your suit exactly how you want it. It's it's the magic BS machine. Sure.
Maybe that's how Spider-Man made his suit.
Which is my other thing, because it still makes me nuts. Yes, the homemade suit makes sense. Right? We all got sweatpants lying around. We've all and I remember back when I was a kid, you take a T-shirt, right, and just put it like your head, just a face just sticking through, and then you can tie the arms behind it, and you got like a ninja mask. Sure, that makes sense. Yeah,
I've never done.
And then
you
can
tuck
that back in. Yeah, it's great. But this super fancy suit that James Acheson, the guy who worked on Man of Steel and made those amazing suits, how does a kid come up with that? And the thing that makes me laugh, and we talked about this off mic, is part of the reason that he has organic web shooters is no kid could figure out how to make these web shooters. We're gonna have to make them organic. Yep. But he can make this suit.
He's an expert seamstress.
What the F
Is seamstress gendered? Is that a female
Seamster?
Is
I don't know.
seamster? Is that the? No, the thing that gets me too is we go. Maybe I have this mixed up in my head, but we go through the montage of him drawing all of his different suits and stuff like that. And then he settles on the very iconic, very comic accurate, and he's a really good artist too.
He's a fantastic artist.
Almost
In
like
pen.
a comic book artist. Yeah, in pen.
Sharpie.
No tracings at all. No, so he draws that comic accurate one, and he looks at it, and he's like, yeah, that's the one. And then the next scene, you see him wearing the red shirt and the hood, and it's like, wait, what? What are we doing? What are we doing here? Like,
Yeah, you have to do the scene in the wrestling ring. You got to do that the way.
And we go though from the red shirt and the hood, which I thought was cool. That's a look. That seems to me what a high schooler would create if he had superpowers.
Yes.
But then the leap from that to the comic accurate, very highly detailed. Where did he get
that
these
took me out of the
materials?
film the first time I saw it. I was just like, because I had seen the promo shots and was like, okay, there has to be an in-universe reason he gets this, and there's any number of ways that you could have done that, and they're just like, no, he just has it now because he sketched it and it came to life. What's going on there? I don't know.
I got nothing. I don't know.
Nothing.
I don't like it.
All right,
in terms of, I'm gonna take us off here a little bit. In terms of, regardless of how he got the suit, how would you rank Spider-Man's suits between Holland, Garfield, and Maguire?
Yeah, so he has just the one suit, right? Maguire does, so.
Well, he's got the black one too, but yeah.
Oh, no, that's true. Yeah, there is that.
Which is basically the same, just black.
Yeah. No, my favorite live-action Spider-Man suit is the Amazing Spider-Man one, Garfield's second suit. I know you've talked about how you like his first suit, which I like. In universe, that makes sense. Like, I like that theory behind it. Like I think it was the yellow lenses that threw me more than anything. It's fine. My favorite one is Garfield, but he's also my favorite Spider-Man. So I think I would probably rate Tobey's last. I think I'd probably like the MCU stuff better too.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. It's not bad. Just because it's last doesn't mean it's bad. It's a good suit.
No, it is a good suit, and I was excited to see it when they started doing the promo images, but I think there's a little bit of a bad taste just because of it doesn't make any sense how he would have it. I struggle with that.
Yeah. He also, in terms of like body type, I understand it's not Tobey most of the time in the suit, but he doesn't, like, to me, Spider-Man was always kind of like a slender person, and
he's pretty big.
He's kind of bulky.
That's true.
I think Garfield and Tom Holland fill that out a little bit better.
Yeah, especially compared because Garfield is very gangly.
Yeah.
The one thing that I didn't pick up on first couple of viewings about this, back to the Goblin suit just real fast, is that it's not all green. And I think some of that too is like in high definition, you can pick out things better and 4K and whatnot. That there is some purple shading in that suit. I wish they would have leaned into that a lot more though. I think because just green together just doesn't look great, especially because you made the Spider-Man suit so colorful. You made everything else so colorful, and then you went monochrome with the Goblin suit.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were kind of leaning into this was developed for the military, but I mean, you could add a little montage scene with him too, where he makes alterations to his suit, or even like have it be battle damaged a little bit to give it some character. I don't know. It's not.
Yeah, it gets battle damage at the end, but that's about it. And one more time, ripping on Kirsten Dunst. Why didn't I just cast a natural ginger when Alicia Witt was sitting right there?
I don't really like that you limited us to one more time. I would like to dunk on her more.
Well, we can dunk on her as many times as you want, but one more right here.
Man, little hussy. I hate that lady.
All right, I'm gonna move down to setting the design. I love that a lot of this is on soundstages because you just have to, but they actually, a lot of it is in New York. And I remember hearing lots of people who are actually from Queens getting very excited that like Peter's house is literally in Queens. Mm-hmm. So that's fun. Like it's in Forest Hills. So the Moondance Diner is also, that's a real location it was on 6th Avenue. And so
I also thought it was interesting that I don't know the name of the historic building. I was going to look this up and I forgot. The Daily Bugle.
Yeah, the Flatiron.
Is that what that's called?
It's called the Flatiron Building. Yeah.
There are so like
It's the
That building
Continental.
has so many
Boys
things.
hang out.
The boys, yeah.
Yeah.
That building sure is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's a cool building.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of stuff in New York and a lot of stuff in Los Angeles, but that stuff would be mainly the sound stages. Although the Natural History Museum is the stand-in for where Peter gets bitten, the Columbia University Laboratory.
I thought it was interesting. They did the bridge scene. Okay, so like I'm sure everyone knows this by now. In comics, part of Peter's Spider-Man origin story is, I believe it's Venom brings Gwen Stacy to the top of a bridge and throws Gwen Stacy off the bridge. And Garfield's movie kind of does this a little bit. But in the comics, Venom throws her off the bridge. Spider-Man tries to catch her with his web, and breaks her neck. Again, Garfield kind of recreates that. And in this movie, if we're talking about setting, like as a kid, when Goblin took MJ to the bridge, I thought, oh my goodness, they're gonna do this. This is gonna change the tone of the movie. Like he's gonna snap her neck accidentally. I just thought that was a weird choice to give Spider-Man fans a bridge, throw someone off a bridge, and then not break her neck. Oh man, I really wish she broke her neck.
And what we're seeing too is, speaking of comic accuracy too, I think that really the MJ character is kind of an amalgamation of both of those characters. Like there's a lot of Gwen Stacy in that too, just in the fact that like they grew up together and or they're around, like, because he doesn't, in the comics, he doesn't meet MJ, and like that's a whole like running gag, right? That he doesn't actually meet her for several issues. And it's a big surprise when he finds out, oh yeah, she's basically a supermodel. So
yeah, and then they bring Gwen Stacy into the third movie, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, as a kid, I was just like, oh, she's gonna die. Dang it, she lived.
Dang it, she lived. I did want to talk about that museum, though. I love the set decoration that's got the marble columns in there. And like, that's a museum I'd want to hang out in. It's just gorgeous. But and on the other side, the Parker's house with the wallpaper just feels so old in there. I mean, those people are old. They're like in their 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you feel about Parker's room, Peter Parker's room? It didn't seem, I don't know, it didn't seem very, like a kid wouldn't have that room. Some of the stuff in there, I just don't think you'd have pictures of your aunt and uncle in your bedroom. Maybe you would. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not a sentimental person.
Yeah, it didn't feel very lived in to me.
Yeah.
It feels very sterile and very manufactured. I'm wondering what you think about the Goblin glider, because to me, I felt like it almost could work in the real world. I think they did a pretty good job of working on the physics for that. I felt like I could see that almost working.
Parts of it, yes. I actually feel like it looked better when it was animated. I mean, it didn't look great animated, but it seemed to like move slightly better when it was animated, because it almost looked like it had, hinges on the wings. So as he'd turn his legs, it would turn. Yeah. But any time where it was a practical effect and you saw him riding it, it looked like it was on a cart being pulled. It didn't look like it was flying. I actually have, so Roger Ebert, when this movie came out, wrote a little thing about it. He did not like it. He panned this movie. I'm wondering if you agree or disagree with this. He says, Green Goblin, who surfs the skies in jet shoes, he too looks like a drawing being moved too quickly around a frame, instead of like a character who has mastered a daring form of locomotion. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. That's fair, I think. I mean, that's early CGI too.
Yeah, it seemed very inconsistent.
Yeah.
It seems good sometimes and not so good others.
I did want to go back just briefly to the cage, and I know we talked about this a little bit, the Bonesaw match. That I do like that at least they're attempting to set up a thing that looks at first like this is a bad thing for Peter, but it actually gives him an opportunity to go vertical in a very easy way. But you mentioned that you saw something that you...
Yes, I'm always immediately taken out of that cage scene because he jumps on the walls of the cage, and his hands are flat as if his hands are on a wall. But they're bars. I feel like he would just grab the bars. Like he's not grabbing the bar. I don't know why that was a choice. Maybe he wanted like the traditional Spider-Man pose. Grabbing a bar is not very Spider-Man-y.
No.
It's a small thing, but that scene is fantastic.
Yeah, it's good. And
3 minutes of playtime.
The verticality of that scene is very well done. Plays to Spider-Man's strengths.
My kids were so upset. My kids who don't watch professional wrestling, nor have they ever seen anything like it.
Yeah.
When Bonesaw got handed the golf club and the chair, they're like, "That's cheating. You can't give him a chair."
That's how you're supposed to feel.
Kind of how this works.
Good job, little Eldons.
Yeah.
The last thing that I want to talk about in this section is the 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88.
Whoa, hang on. What?
Yeah. Okay, so Uncle Ben's car is actually Sam Raimi's car.
Oh, that's right.
Shows up in the Evil Dead trilogy and Darkman and A Simple Plan and The Gift. And, of course, in Doctor Strange and the Multitude of Madness floating up. It's like very small bit for that one. But I did not, even though I'd seen some of those movies before I saw this movie, I didn't recognize it. But now I see him pulling up in front of the library and I just laugh. I'm like, that's Ash's car that Uncle Ben is driving.
I haven't seen that movie in so long, but I believe you.
Like, that car's been in medieval times and back.
Yeah.
So
So
that's fun.
the actor that plays Uncle Ben, while we're talking about Uncle Ben,
Cliff Robertson.
Okay, he's probably dead now, I'm assuming.
He is. He was 79 in this film.
Yeah, he looks friggin' old in this film.
Yeah.
What else is he in? Is he in anything? Oh, Escape from L.A. That's what I know him from.
Yeah. He's been in a lot of stuff. He had a very long and illustrious career.
Yeah, for some reason, Robert Redford gives this a similar feel to this guy.
Yeah,
you can tell it's like you were a popular movie star in the days of old.
Yeah,
and I can tell by your face. Yeah, maybe maybe it was the hair.
Yeah,
yeah. 2011 he died. Wow.
Yeah, I'm kind of transitioning down to characters already, but yeah, I wanted to point that out. Like, he was 79. He says he's like 68, I think, in the film. That's what he says. But dude's almost 80, and Rosemary Harris, who plays Aunt May, was 75. And I'm continually like, why are they so freaking old? Like, I know that's some of how they've been portrayed in the comics, but are they great uncle? And like, what's the deal there? They're so much older than him.
Their parents, a very big age gap between the children. You see,
kids more than 50.
For their grandparents, traveled the world and had kids when they were young, and then didn't settle down until they were old, and then had more. I don't know. I'm making crap up. Yeah,
yeah. So Tobey Maguire, on the other hand, was 27. Yeah.
Okay, who in this movie do you think is the most egregious casting in terms of I'm not falling for that age?
Okay, so he's actually younger. So Joe Manganiello who plays Flash. He was 25, but he looks like he's 35.
No, I think he looks like a high schooler.
Do you think so?
Because he looks like someone that would have put me into a locker in high school. Yes.
Okay. Okay, we didn't go to the same high school, but no, Tobey Maguire.
Well, you were probably cooler than me, so.
I think so. I'm doing a movie podcast right now. That wasn't cool.
That's true. We both suck.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, Tobey Maguire is just freaking old. He's 27.
Yeah.
Franco was 24.
Okay, how old was Kirsten?
Dunst was 20.
20. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I hate her face so much. I think I'm going to go with Toby. I think Toby was the most awkward-looking high schooler there.
Yeah. The oldest. Just definitively oldest.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things, speaking of age, and I don't know how old she was at the time, but Elizabeth Banks is in this movie.
Yeah.
She plays Betty Brant, and at one point I think she had auditioned for Mary Jane, but she was considered too old.
Would have been great. Would have loved that.
Yeah.
She has aged well. She looks pretty much the same.
Yeah, she does. I did mention
plastic surgery. Wow.
Maybe. Bruce Campbell is in this.
Of course he is.
And I was so excited to see Bruce Campbell when he showed up in this. Of course, it's a Sam Raimi movie. He plays the wrestling ring announcer, and we'll talk about him multiple times because he shows up as an usher in Spider-Man 2, and then the maitre d' in the third movie, and there was a great fan theory. Corey's not here, but in spirit he is, that he was playing Mysterio, and that's what he was literally the same guy all the time. It was in the background. And I love that theory, and I wish that would have came true in like Spider-Man 4. That would have been amazing, because he would have been a great Mysterio.
He would have, that would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
I love Mysterio as is, but that would have been great.
Yeah.
What is your favorite of those three? What was your favorite Bruce Campbell cameo? I'm going with the Mater D. Like,
Yeah, the Mater D's pretty great.
that was amazing.
Yeah. I do like the Usher too, though. They keep shushing him. That's pretty great. Octavia Spencer is in this. She plays the check-in girl. You know, she doesn't even have a name. Octavia Spencer's in like Help, and she's in.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was it? What's the movie where they're the astronauts and they're the mathematicians? What's that called?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Something. This is some great podcasting.
It's a good one though.
It's the one with NASA. The numbers.
Yeah, the NASA one. Kevin Costner's in that, and
Damn.
yeah. I don't know. Help us out, people. Anyway, she's in this, and she's really good. Small fry and the whole thing, and you probably will die or whatever. She has a lot of personality. Justin's gonna figure that out.
I'm gonna Google this.
My favorite thing that didn't happen, but I really wish it would have, and this is according to
Hidden Figures.
Thank you, Hidden Figures. Great film. True story. Well, based on a true story anyway. You know Hugh Jackman was supposed to be in this movie?
I did not know that. Tell me more.
Yeah, according to him, he's the source. He gave an interview with Huffington Post back in the day, and he was supposed to cameo as Wolverine.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yep, but they couldn't find the suit. That was the beginning of the issues, and then
Wolverine suit.
Yeah,
Get the guy a wife beater and some jeans. He'll be fine.
just like in the Deadpool a little bit.
Yeah.
Got to put my suit on. Get a t-shirt and jeans. Yeah, no, they couldn't find and they didn't have the rights, and so they would have had to work that out too, because Fox had the rights for that, and this is Sony and all that stuff. But
Can you imagine if he was in this movie?
They were working on it, building a shared universe.
That would have set up, shared universe.
We would have freaked out
before the MCU. That'd be amazing.
Yep. So that was on the verge of it took them 10 years, but they were already, because again, we've been watching these films through the lens of, could this exist together? And there's as definitive proof as you can that at least, the higher ups, Kevin Feige thought so.
So with that in mind, let's go to the question: could this exist with Blade 2, and X-Men? I think we've agreed, right? They could have existed in the same universe. Are we still there? Do you think?
I still think so.
Exist?
I still think so. I think
we don't have world-ending events like in the MCU, so this could all be very localized.
Yeah, and that we don't have that kind of stuff. Anytime it's like, well, why didn't they call on the other heroes? That kind of stuff. Like Blade is very specialized, and nobody knows about Blade unless you're a vampire.
Yeah,
right.
And I don't think the X-Men are really taking calls. I don't think Spider-Man would be like, I need the X-Men to fight Green Goblin.
Yeah. The X-Men thing is tricky because mutants are everywhere, and there would have been a reference at some point about. There's even been controversy in other media that is Spider-Man a mutant or not? He probably would if this came out after X-Men, and it did, and it was in the shadow of X-Men, that would have come up.
Wait. Yeah. Who's arguing if Spider-Man? That's not a thing. No one argues about that. I'm calling you out, Craig.
I've heard things.
No, he's
mutated.
There's a comic run called The House of M.
Yeah.
Great comic run. One of my favorites. House of M, where it's an alternate universe created by Wanda, and mutants are dominant, and Homo sapiens are persecuted by mutants. And Spider-Man in that claims he is a mutant, and J. Jonah Jameson, who is Spider-Man's publicist in this, has to hide Spider-Man's secret that he's not actually a mutant. And it's this big scandal that he actually comes out and he's bitten by a spider, and then he's persecuted. Anyway, this is really good. Fans, read it. House of M, fantastic. It was 2005 or something.
That sounds great.
But I don't. No, he's not a mutant. No.
I guess my point is, with a little tweaking, this absolutely would have fit. I think with a simple line of dialogue, this could have fit within the context. So far, we have nothing that's breaking continuity in a way where these four films could not exist together.
Well, and how far away? Because X-Men's in Manchester.
Yeah, that's upper New York.
How far away is? I don't know. I'm not a geography teacher. I'm a history teacher.
It's a big state. They're not in Manhattan.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
By bus, it is. Oh, I don't want to buy a bus ticket. You keep going. I'm gonna look this up.
Okay,
How far away is this?
I'm just gonna vamp about Hero's Journey because like this just fits the pattern so beautifully. Like it's a classic Hero's Journey story, the monomyth, absolutely. You know, his mentor figure, his uncle dies, and all of those things. Road to Trials, like it fits those things. We've talked about Hero's Journey at length in some of our earlier episodes, and we have a whole episode about what the Hero's Journey looks like. I think that might be episode 5, way back in the day. But it absolutely fits that pattern. It's the reluctant hero who, you know, makes early bad choices and then it's foisted upon him. We have that great line about.
Is he reluctant though?
Well, of course he is initially. I don't see why that's my problem. What's the line? I don't see what.
Absolutely, he's reluctant.
Right?
Idiot. Yeah, I got this.
What's the line? I just misquoted it badly. I forget the part.
Oh my goodness, I missed the part where that's my problem.
Yeah. So that's he has to. Yeah, he has to decide to do that because even the first time he makes an appearance as Spider-Man, he's doing that for money, which is true. Canonically correct. It's only after, you know, he has the whole thing where Uncle Ben dies, and it has to be. I have to do something with this.
Manchester, New York, which is where the X Mansion is, to New York, New York is 4 hours and 56 minutes.
That's a long ways.
Spider-Man's not web slinging that long. Yeah,
no.
Got to keep the leg fresh. Got to take the bus.
He's not going out there. This is also it's a coming of age story too, which I think he says it's about a girl. It's not.
Stupid. You're wrong, Peter. You idiot. Kids are stupid. They don't know.
Yeah, idiot. It's a coming of age story, I love that it's an origin story, and it makes sense. And I did talk about this, I think, a little bit at lunch. We have some great conversations at lunch. That this again,
we should just record our lunch sessions and put that as a podcast.
That now we had, I mean, kind of awkwardly that the Amazing Spider-Man movies avoid as much of copying this movie as they can and still tell the same story, and it's been retold and told so many times. But this is the first cinematic version of that origin. And so you kind of forget about that. And it doesn't get, I don't think, enough credit for doing it as well as it did.
I'm currently Googling the line from the MCU in about the great power and great responsibility because it's not great. Keep going, Craig.
For the Amazing Spider-Man? Okay. So for World Building, I just had that it's essentially a hyper-realized version of our world where, you know, there's this, people don't freak out about the fact that he's Spider-Man. They're fairly okay with it, right? And opposite way, like we see, like with Man of Steel, it's very much like there's paranoia with that. There's really no paranoia. There's like, you know, the one guy that's like, he stinks and I don't like him, but like that's about it. And J. Jonah Jameson, basically everybody likes Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. So. And J. Jonah Jameson, I don't even believe he dislikes Spider-Man. I think he's doing it for the ratings. Not the ratings, but for the sales. I got the line that Tony Stark says in the MCU.
Yeah,
it's so clunky and weird, and I don't know if they did it on purpose. So, Tony Stark,
it's bad. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, when you can do the thing. Oh no, I'm sorry. This isn't Tony Stark. It's Peter Parker talking.
Yes,
to Tony Stark. When you can do the things I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen. They happen because of you. It's like, what?
That's awful.
What are you doing?
It's so bad in Civil War, right? Yeah.
Who wrote that?
It's awful. I think it's the same. It's Marcus and McFeely, though, isn't it? The guys that write all this stuff.
Oh, is it? Okay, so Martin.
I might be mispronouncing their names.
Martin Sheen's Uncle Ben also gives Andrew Garfield's Peter the speech, or he talks about it. He talks about his father to Parker. He says he believed that if you could do things for other people, you had a moral obligation to do those things. That's what's at stake here, not choice, responsibility. It's like, man, the original line is the best.
It's Martin Sheen, though, so I'm going to give him a pass.
That's not fair.
President Bartlett.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts then on Spider-Man.
I mean, I'll go back to the top. What I said about the doublethink. It holds a special place in my heart. It is part of my own personal origin story and who I am today. So I will love this movie forever. It is nowhere near a perfect movie, but it was a pioneer for superhero movies in a way. And I think we've said that about X-Men. I think we said X-Men was kind of paving the way for everything else too. But this to me seems... it pushes the boundaries more than X-Men did. X-Men played it safe with the darker theme tonally. And this is also the first movie that has the Marvel opening credits, like the flipping comic book thing, which is kind of stuck around till today. But I think a lot of it's kind of a confused movie. At the same time, it kind of jumps between the stakes are real and they're very high stakes, and then also like, hey, let's be fun and goofy, and it doesn't quite know what it is. And I think by the time it gets to Spider-Man 2, it does much better about that. It kind of like finds the middle ground between those two. But this one's just not quite there yet, and I just hate Kirsten Dunst so much.
Yeah, I mean, spoiler for several films from now, but when we get to Spider-Man 2, like, to me, that's legitimately a great film.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that part of that for me is that this movie was just okay for me. This came out the same summer that Attack of the Clones came out, so that was the movie that I was most interested in. And again, this didn't do... Spider-Man's never been my favorite superhero. I've liked him. Like I said, I watched him as a kid and in the show on Fox afternoons and whatnot. But I was just like, yeah, it's okay. It's good. It's not bad.
Yeah.
And so having that is just kind of a muted response in my brain to Spider-Man 2 becomes, oh my gosh, this really impressed me. I did not have expectations for this to be as great as it was. So I do think it's a good film. Like I said, I've enjoyed it more now than I did when it first came out. I think also because I'm watching it through the lens of what's coming next.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate it for what it does. Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. I've kind of said that tonally it's consistent, but I think you're right. I think that there are some places here where it's kind of stretching things and trying to figure out exactly. They haven't cracked the code yet.
Yeah,
that I don't think they necessarily crack until you really get to Iron Man. In a lot of ways,
and it's also kind of in this weird spot of like today, everyone has kind of accepted that the MCU is not going to be a shot-for-shot remake of the comic. I think the MCU's approach is like, we're going to keep the characters true to themselves, but the adventures they go on are going to be like based on comics. Mm-hmm. And I know at the time of Spider-Man, and maybe this was just like ignorant 14-year-old Justin, I wanted this to be like, this was not comic accurate, like at all. Like from the web shooters to Spider-Man's quippiness. Like Spider-Man is absolutely my favorite hero, like by a long shot. And part of that was I loved his quippiness. And we get, I think, one example of a quip in here when he's in the cage with Bonesaw. And then nothing else. Like he doesn't seem like Spider-Man, where tonally, where this movie is kind of like happier at times, you could have totally done that. And I think Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield do a pretty good job of that. But Tobey, not so much, at least not yet.
Yeah. That's my biggest gripe with his Spider-Man. And why I like Garfield's more, small knives. Whole...
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Tom Holland does a great job in Civil War, I think.
Yeah,
he's
I like him
super
best in
quippy. And then his movies, he kind of gets a little more serious. But yeah, Tom Holland in Civil War is like, perfect.
So anything else, or I think we're done.
I think we're done. I have like so many more notes on this movie that I just don't think we have time to get to, but we just might have some conversations on social media about this.
Yeah. So, let's do that. So as we close, we just want to say thank you all so much for listening. If you would like to connect with us, if you have some thoughts, you can find us on X, Instagram, and Facebook. You can email us at readingbetweenreels@gmail.com, or you can use the SpeakPipe app on our website. And if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, review us on iTunes or Spotify. And don't forget to give our sponsor Magic Mind a try. You have a limited offer you can use now that gets you up to 48% off your first subscription or 20% off one-time purchases with code RBTR20 at checkout. You can claim it at magicmind.com/RBTR20. And our next episode in this series, Marvel Before the MCU, will be Daredevil. Send us an email or voicemail about your favorite moments from Daredevil, and we'll share it on the next episode.